Hello my dear friends and welcome to my channel. Don't forget to make yourself a cup of hot chocolate with marshmallow if you want, because today we have very interesting stories, and one of them is a story about a man who let his son hold a venomous snake, and then karma got them. Please subscribe if you haven't and I hope you'll enjoy it. My job is quite time consuming, with a standard shift of mine more often than not starting at 10 AM and ending at 9 PM. A single shift pretty much consumes my entire day, with me typically working 5 days a week, or sometimes 6, depending on which rotation we happen to be on that week. Needless to say, I enjoy my days off. So I was relieved when June rolled around and I had a week's vacation scheduled for a much needed break. Rather than traveling anywhere for vacation, I simply wanted to spend that time at my apartment's pool with cold beer, easy music on the speaker, and my feet up. Enter EM and her kids. There I am one beautiful summer's afternoon, lounging by the pool, catching some rays, and not a care in the world. At one point, I glance over to the other side of the pool and see two kids, probably no older than 7 or 8 each, with a glass bottle accompanied by their mom. Now the pool has a few generic rules. No running, no food, no smoking, etc. However, these aren't really enforced. The only rule that is 100% absolutely enforced is no glass in the pool area. Reason being is if glass breaks in the pool area, not only is it a hazard for everyone walking around barefoot, but maintenance has to assume that glass got into the pool itself, and they will have to drain the pool to remove the glass from it. But that being both a timely and costly procedure for the apartment complex to do, they won't refill the pool for the rest of the season, they only want to drain it once, and won't refill it again. So for the benefit of everyone's safety as well as not having the pool be drained months before pool season is supposed to end, the leasing office and staff actually encourage tenants to enforce this rule among one another to ensure it's followed. I walk on over to them. Hey, guys. Is that a glass bottle you've got there? The kids nod. Okay, I only ask because the staff says they don't want those in the pool area because they could break and they'll close the pool down for the season if that happens. Entitled Mom. My aunt owns all these buildings, gesturing to the apartment complex. You don't have to be the glass bottle police, they're being careful. Now in my head, I'm immediately questioning her claim that her aunt owns these buildings, as the apartment complex is owned by a property management company that oversees many different buildings, houses, apartments, and is definitely not just one person as she dismissively described it as initially. Well, I'm on vacation, and I'm not going to take any more time out of my day to argue about the validity of her statement, nor make a further fuss about the glass. So I shrugged and went back to my chair on the other side of the pool. I'm not going to spend my much cherished time off trying to argue pool rules with a Karen, when that's the staff's job to do so. I did however shoot the apartment super, Miguel, a text saying that a big sign on the door to the pool saying, "No glass no exceptions," wasn't an obvious enough indication, since there's people who just ignore the rules, because their aunt owns the buildings. Now Miguel's a cool guy, he's hung out at the pool with us several times, and has always been good about repairs, accommodations, and anything else the tenants need. He was not happy about this because he's heard that we're being careful, or the "it's nowhere near the water" excuse many times, and can't believe that so many people can't follow one simple rule. This has been a reoccurring issue at the pool for some time now. He tells me he has the day off, otherwise he would come on down and tell them himself they can't have the glass in there, but he texts the leasing office manager, Hannah, about it and says she would take it from there. At this point, the three had already left, so I had thought it was all in the rearview mirror. Boy was I wrong. About 5 minutes or so later, I notice EM coming back to the pool with a bit of a stride in her step, heading to me specifically. Here we go, I think to myself, seeing where this was heading from a mile away. Hey. Yes. My aunt just called me telling me not to do that. Was that really necessary? You're so freaking stupid. Handsome. No. You're obese, and you're ugly. I bet you got teased about it in high school. Actually, I was more or less busy in high school learning how to do basic things like reading and writing. And now I can read things like that sign on the entrance that says "No glass no exceptions." Do you know how to read at all, Ms.? EM turns beet red and storms off, muttering something under her breath that I can't quite make out. But I just head on back to my corner thinking about getting back to enjoying my vacation. Only now I see Hannah coming out of the leasing office and heading my way. I meet her at the pool entrance. She tells me that Miguel texted her about the glass at the pool and that she immediately knew who they were. Turns out EM's aunt didn't own the buildings as EM said she had, but rather just ran the front desk answering the phone for the holding company that actually owned the complex. EM's aunt had called Hannah and asked her to let EM and her kids in the pool for the day. Once Hannah got the text from Miguel about the glass, Hannah called the aunt and relayed the message, which in turn resulted in EM getting a call from her aunt asking her to get rid of the bottle. I apologize for creating such a crapstorm for Hannah because I didn't think it would get that out of hand, but Hannah assured me I was completely in the right and thanked me for being vigilant about safety hazards. I'm delighted to say this story has a happy ending. The air conditioning unit in my apartment wasn't bad, but it was old and not kicking off as much cold air as it could have. I was in the process of looking at new AC wall units I could purchase and replace my current unit with. I had mentioned this to Hannah and asked if management would be willing to send maintenance to my apartment to help install it once I got it. After this fiasco, Hannah arranged to have a new AC installed the next day on management. Get a new air conditioning unit for telling an entitled Karen that she has to follow the rules just like everyone else. Sounds good to me. You handled that as well as you could. Told off an ignorant Karen and got a new AC unit. Now that's what I call a win-win. For context, I have a German Shepard named Deuce. I got him as a gift when I was 21, 26 now, and he is the nicest dog you'll ever meet. He's nice around other dogs, I've never seen him bite anyone, and he loves kids, important for later. At the time I was fresh out of college and recently got a job at a tech company. I moved out into my current neighborhood that was not only close, but had ample backyard space since Deuce loves to run. I found a house and moved there. After about a month after moving in I saw one of my neighbors outside, a nice older fellow we'll call Hank. I approached Hank and struck up some friendly small talk before telling him about Deuce. His face immediately became worried and he said, "You might want to keep him inside, Karen hates dogs." I asked who that was and he pointed to the house on the other side of mine and explained that she absolutely despises dogs and once called the police on a man walking his dogs, accusing it of intentionally pooping on her lawn. I of course decided to laugh this off, said goodbye to Hank and went back inside to check on Deuce. Fast forward a week and I let Deuce outside in the backyard to run, watching him to make sure he didn't try to climb over the fences. He had tried doing this when my parents were watching him. I then see a kid approach Deuce from the other side of the gate. We'll call him LG for Little Goblin. So Goblin called over to Deuce saying, "Doggy doggy." And I thought it was cute so I went over to say hello when I realized he had a wooden stake in his hand. He then slashed at my dog with it when he got close enough, but since he's a kid, his stubby arms couldn't reach Deuce through the fence before I called him back. I then went over and asked him what he was doing. Note I wasn't even yelling, I had just raised my voice a bit. The kid, having realized he had been caught, threw the stake near his shed and ran back inside. I didn't think much of it and let Deuce back inside to double check to make sure he was alright. That's when I heard a knock at my door. I opened and of course there was Karen with her little goblin behind her. "Are you the one who yelled at my kid?" I took a deep breath and said, "I didn't yell at him, but I did raise my voice to H." She cut me off saying, "How dare you yell at my baby?" I then tried to explain, "Well miss your baby tried stabbing my dog." She looked over my shoulder and saw Deuce laying on the couch. No he did not. My little gremlin would do no such thing. Besides, even if he did, your dog probably had it coming. This is when I started to lose my cool a bit and simply said, "What?" She then went into a rant about how that type of dog is dangerous. And how people like you are the reason people get mauled by dogs. I simply just ignored her and said bye. Before closing the door in her face and giving Deuce a treat. About an hour later there's another knock at my door. I roll my eyes thinking it's Karen again, but am surprised when it's the police. I open the door and say, "How can I help you, officer?" I see Karen standing behind them with a crap-eating grin on her face. "We got a report that your dog attacked this child, is this true, sir?" "No officers, her child attempted to stab my dog, she should have been watching him." "Can you back up that statement?" "Sure, check near her shed, you'll see the wooden stake." The officers check and found the stake, but for some reason still weren't 100% convinced. Then we see the dog in question. I call out Deuce and he comes running out, excited to meet the new people. I gave him some commands and he gladly did them in front of the cops. See, he's a very obedient dog, he would never hurt a kid. I then from behind me hear, "It's true." I turned to see Hank. He had been out mowing his backyard and saw the entire thing. I seen it with my own eyes, officers. The kids had something in his hand and tried using it on the dog. The cops then asked Karen for her side of the story, and she makes up some obviously fake lie about how a 6 deuce on her kid for playing too loud and should be arrested for child endangerment. The cops look at each other, turned to me, apologized, turned to Karen, and gave her a fine for lying to the police and wasting their time. Karen was in disbelief that her story that she threw together in 5 seconds didn't work. For the next week or so, anytime I would let Deuce out, I would watch him very closely. I got a few dirty looks from Karen and an email to her, saying she was going to sue me for child endangerment and emotional distress. But nothing ever came out of it. Me and Hank still talk about this event and laugh at it to this day. You might want to consider getting some security cameras for your property. This woman's both stupid and crazy, and if she doesn't throw another fit about the dog, it will be about something else. There are no guarantees Hank will be around to back you next time. I work at a car dealership as a receptionist, one of my duties being greeting customers when they enter. I am a professional artist on the side, and I've been busy with some commissions lately, so since it's not busy at the dealer, I started working on my iPad mini. It's old and I'm working on upgrading, but I currently can't afford to, so I live with it despite the battery life being really short, and I have to basically keep it plugged in at all times. During my lunch I was in the waiting area doing more work when a kid, a little girl no older than 4, came up and watched me work. This happens a lot when I draw in public, and usually the kids just ask a lot of questions, but this nice girl, was very quiet and just had a look of amazement, so I just let her be. Her mother, the EM in the story, was nearby at a salesman's desk working on purchasing a new car, which is a long and no doubt boring process. The salesman working with her walked away, which at my dealership they do very often to retrieve paperwork, talk to the sales and finance managers, etc. She looks over at me and her kid and asks her, "What are you looking at?" Her kid points at my screen and says she's painting puppies. I was working on Twitch emotes of a streamer's dog. I sort of show my screen to EM, and she then asks her kid if she wants to draw, which the girl excitedly said yes. I expected EM to pull out a paper and pencils, or at least ask if I can get some for her too, but she just looked at me expectantly. When I realized she was waiting for me to hand her my iPad, I said, "Oh, she can't use mine, but I can get her a notepad and pens," but apparently that wasn't good enough. She sighs and says just let her draw a little bit, I'm almost done here anyway, which I knew for a fact wasn't true. They were waiting on bank approval for a loan, which can take anywhere between 5 and 30 minutes, and even then they'll be here longer for finance paperwork, detailing, etc. I start to explain that this is part of my work and she scoffs, saying I'm just doodling puppies, and it was selfish that I wouldn't let NG doodle on my device too. Poor NG was just looking at her hands, looking quite embarrassed. I then pretended my lunch was over and got up to spend the rest of my lunch at my desk. I couldn't see her behind a huge truck on display, but I can hear her grumble to NG about who knows what. Whatever, pretend like I didn't hear, so I don't mess up the sale for my coworker. Some time later, Nature called me, and I got up to use the restroom. I left my iPad on my seat, so it'll stay plugged in, and put a notepad over it to try to cover it up somehow. My desk is a wide crescent shape with no drawers, to keep my things safe, so this was the best I could do to somewhat hide it. I was in the restroom no longer than 3 minutes, but when I got back, only my charger remained. My iPad and Apple Pencil were gone. I looked over to the lady, who had her large purse suspiciously in her lap now instead of on the floor beside her chair like it was before. I was panicked because a lot of my work is on that iPad that I needed. I went to my sales manager, SM, and told him the situation. He told me he would take care of it, but to be patient for now. I went back to my desk full of anxiety and my stomach doing backflips. SM went to the desk where EM was to work out the deal. They're far enough that I can hear their voices but not pinpoint what they're saying, but I did hear her eventually yell, "How dare you? I would never steal, do you want to lose the sale?" I immediately got up and went over behind the lady so SM could see me, but she couldn't. He tells her he understands, but my iPad went missing and he wants to make sure no one currently in the building has it. That's when I remembered to find my feature on all Apple products. My iPad was connected to the dealer's Wi-Fi, so I pulled out my iPhone and pressed play sound for my iPad. Her purse started dinging. She tried to play it off as if it's her ringtone, and SM stared at her, as if daring her to answer it. Thing is, with the play sound feature, if I keep pressing it, it will keep pinching. I made my presence known and told her to give my iPad back. That's when she stopped playing dumb and just said just let NG have it, her birthday is coming up and I can't afford a present for her since I'm getting this car. SM said he was happy to cancel the deal so she can instead buy a birthday present for her child and to return my iPad or he'll call the police. She practically threw my iPad at me where it hit me in the gut and took NG from the waiting area to leave. Poor thing looked at me with the most apologetic look on her face before leaving with her mother. SM might have helped me, but he's not exactly the nicest person. From now on, I'm not allowed to bring my iPad to the dealer, I have to either leave it in my car or leave it at home. Whatever. The M took my Apple Pencil with her since she left in a hurry, so I'm gonna stop by the Apple store after work to get a new one, but until then I'm stuck with my pens and notepad. The dealership has her info, so you should absolutely attempt to get your Apple Pencil back. Also, this isn't your fault. It's people's fault who can't keep hands by themselves. Well guys, that's it for today. If you end up enjoying this video please consider subscribing, and if you missed the last episode on the channel I'm gonna link it right here. The story is about a woman who put on a crap show when OP refused to watch her kid in the pool, and then she turned the rage mode on. Check this out if you haven't, and I'll see you in my next video.